some people I think are wired to do something. And the older I get, the more I look at it like, you could be super hippie-ish about it and call it a purpose and some sort of grandiose purpose. And nowadays, especially the way the world is going, like if you don't have purpose, whether that's podcasting or, some people do podcasts with 3 people here. Who cares? If you're getting off from it, and I don't mean that to be belligerent, good. So what, and I think especially now that could be the counter to our generation growing up is it wasn't necessarily, my dad wasn't against art per se. We watched movies. My mom's an amazing artist as far as some stuff she does, but it wasn't exactly like leaned into either.
This month, we welcome Jeff Bosley to the podcast. Jeff is a talented film and television actor with a remarkable background and extensive training that originated on the stage. Jeff's impressive achievements in theater include numerous nominations and awards, such as the Theater Recognition Award, Theater Service Award, and 2 Best Actor nominations. In addition to his theatrical accomplishments, Jeff has also made a name for himself in the film industry. He produced and starred in the indie feature film Parallax, which has garnered 11 awards since December 2020, including Best Actor, Best Producer, Best Short Film, and Best Thriller. Jeff's life experiences are as diverse as they are impressive. A former Army Special Forces Green Beret and Medal of Valor-earning firefighter, Jeff pours every ounce of his hard-earned wisdom into his craft, both on and off the screen. Jeff and Kervin discuss transitioning from the military to Hollywood, stoicism, and the 2023 Oscars. We're excited to share this episode with you. My bulky blender was such a pain to use, I ended up hardly ever using it at all. But the BlendJet 2 portable blender makes blending so easy and convenient, I use it just about every day. BlendJet 2 is portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita on the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. BlendJet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. It lasts for 15 plus blends and recharges quickly via a USB-C cord. Best of all, BlendJet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap and you're good to go. With over 30 plus colors and patterns to choose from, there's a BlendJet 2 to complement just about any style. I absolutely love the Lisa Frank edition. What are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com and grab yours today. And be sure to use the promo code Analytics12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. Blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to blendjet.com and use the code Analytics12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever.
All right. Welcome Jeff Bosley to the podcast. Thank you, Jeff.
Man, thanks for having me. This is going to be a blast.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I can already tell. I know I sent you some stuff we'll kind of try to discuss, but who knows if we'll get to all of that stuff because I think we've got...
Glance and I'm not tweeting and ignoring you. I'm literally have a notepad. This is so...
What are you talking about? I just got a notification you posted something on Instagram just now.
Don't read the caption.
Yeah. So I would like to give you a few minutes to just introduce yourself, give a little bit of your background, and then we'll start getting into the episode.
For sure, yeah. The short version is normal nuclear family growing up. My dad was divorced, remarried when I was a kid. So basically, his mom, dad, brother, sister, normal life. I was very fortunate. I lived in a small town in Idaho. I was fortunate. He was a doctor, but he was an old school doctor. So, we didn't have like a Mercedes and a BMW. We had a Suburban and a Subaru. So we had very old school values. I had to mow the lawn to pay for, if I wanted expensive shoes, I had to mow the lawn a lot, so it was very fortunate the way he raised us. I was fortunate to have a stay-at-home mom, and she's an Idaho girl. So she very much had those, if you dare I say, traditional values as far as like upbringing the son and the boy and the girl in the family. College, went off to college out of Idaho. where we kind of discussed a little bit. I went off to private college in Washington because you're supposed to. I just was like, my dad wasn't a big like force you to go guy, but I just was around. I just saw that's the norm. So, I was like, I guess I'm supposed to go to college, and beat that horse to death for like 4.5 years before I dropped out. Like and I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I was the most boring college student to not get a degree ever. Like I didn't even earn it, like all my friends that did drugs and got drunk all the time, they actually got a law degree. Meanwhile, I spent 4.5 years watching like Spider-Man and hanging out in Seattle eating fish, Took a year off, and that year sucked. I was like traditional truck. I worked at a truck company. I was a personal trainer. I was a server at Tony Roma's, and went back to college, but I got in so much trouble in that year. I had to go back to Idaho, and I went to Idaho State University for in-state tuition. Beat that college horse to death for almost another 4.5 years. So I have enough degree credits probably to have a master's, and I only have a bachelor's. 9/11 happened, and then at that point, I was a little older, so I was obviously not 18, but I wasn't, a spry young chicken either. And I held out for another couple of years. I'd always wanted to do the military, but because of my upbringing, my dad's very pro-military. We have military in our family, but just because of the upbringing, it wasn't as like indoctrinated as some families that are grown up in the military. So it was there, but I had no other way to latch on to it to kind of go, is this what I want to do? Is this what I don't want to do? 9/11 happened. My best friend from childhood, he eventually enlisted, and that kind of helped me go, okay, after 2 years, I was like, it's time, because I always knew I wanted to do special operations or special forces of some manner. I was like, I'm getting old. I have a shelf life if I'm going to go running into this. So did that, beat that horse to death for a while. Due to an injury, I got a point where I was like, and I know this is, I'm preaching to the choir, to yourself and a lot in the audience, the way the wars were and the way we are hamstrung. I mean, I'm not a warmonger, but I was like, I saw kind of the writing on the wall where I was like, yeah, there's Green Berets that have amputations that are still serving. But I had a choice from this injury that was could be career, not ending, but it was career altering to the point where my conscience was clear to go, are these wars, is what's going on, are our abilities to do what we need to do without being constantly hamstrung. I factored all those things in. I said, no, I'm out. I'm good. And then while I was transitioning out, I still needed that unit of work ethic. I couldn't just go to be a garbage man. Transitioned into firefighting because I knew I did not want to be a cop, because if anybody was hamstrung, even back then, I knew cops couldn't do their job. Like I said, I'm not out to be a warmonger. Did that for a couple of years, and then finally, through a divorce and various like life slaps in the face, I was like, I've always wanted to play pretend. As a little kid, I was like, if God came down himself, I say this all the time, but I knew I wanted to do something. I wanted to be Rambo, but I didn't know if I wanted to pretend to be Rambo or try it for real. I did it for real for a while, and I was like, F it. I hate the cliche, pack in a bag, moving to Hollywood. And that's exactly what I did. And it's against all of my OCD micromanaging wiring. Did that for, at this point, just under 10 years, got enough of a quote unquote career that I could move away from that hellscape called Los Angeles and moved to Nebraska. And that's kind of brings us here today. That's the short, rambly version of the answer.
Awesome. That's quite a career trajectory.
It's very Forrest Gumpian.
Yeah. So I know early on you were really like a theater junkie.
Yeah.
Was that as a kid? Did you get involved with theater?
100%. Yeah. I back when they had just like Betamax video recorders, I was in the school plays at this grade school I went to. Always, as I was about to say what I was about to say, I was like, wow, what a self-centered little punk I was. But like at the time, I was just like always trying to steal the show, trying to like one up, or like, like I had one role as a court jester at a Christmas school play. I went, again, father was a physician, so I was very fortunate in some choices they made. And I went to a private grade school. Nothing crazy, no uniforms, no like BMWs in the drop-off area. It was a private school in Idaho, so it was suburbans and pickups dropping their kids off.
Right.
And the Christmas play, I was cast as like a court jester. And my parents probably weren't surprised that I always wanted to do this kind of crap growing up, and then eventually, ironically, come back to it in my late 30s. I was supposed to do a cartwheel, tell a joke, and it's a religious school, so it's a little hoity-toity. And I rigged my pants to fall off as I did the car wheel, and exposed myself to the audience at a Christmas play at a Christian grade school, private school. So it's always been in my wiring. Like I said, the practicality has always kind of been hovering, so I didn't lead into it a lot when I was in like high school and college as much. College round 2, that's actually why I pursued theater as a major, actually. And at that point, there's kind of no going back, even though ironically it preceded my military career. Once I did that, I was like, oh shit, I love this. And I absolutely love it. I was fighting online last night with people about Shazam and nerding out on stuff. So like the inner nerd has always been there for sure. Now I'm just get to the point in our age where we're kind of like, I don't care what people think anymore, and I think that's been kind of liberating for me as far as decisions and how I actually embraced that stuff.
Well, were you like a class clown throughout?
I was kind of a loner. I think if anybody was to like sit here with me, I'd have my peaks, but I think I can safely say I was always the guy. I wasn't in a group. I was like, ironically, after having been a Green Beret, I was kind of like a Green Beret in high school. Like I worked as an ally in every group, but I was never part of one, So I was always like working the alliances, but I was never part of one. So I was always just kind of a loner with my best friend. His name's Jared. We were just kind of our own little clique, but we liked doing shenanigans. I know there's Betamax films of us, me and another buddy of mine. We made fun of the girls' drill team, and during halftime, we ran out there and did performances in tutus. And so I know those exist, and someday if my career goes the way it does, they will be exposed. So I had moments, but it wasn't like a narcissistic a-hole. Like, there's those, I always look back and I always remember there's those kids that were like class clowns, but they were like the abrasive class clown that was almost like bully level. It was just like, it wasn't pure spirited. And I think I can proudly say mine was just fun. Like they weren't like, oh, Jeff Bosley's doing that thing again.
Yeah.
I liked to do stuff, and I like to get a rise out of people and then just make them laugh their ass off.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is I see it in a lot of people who are like actors like yourself or ones who want to pursue acting. Sort of every time they're interviewed, they will say, I was a class clown, or I was always... Yeah. If either it was an attention thing or it was just I had all of this creativity within me and I needed to get that out.
And I think I bet if somebody got down and got into some deep hypnosis therapy or something, I'm sure anybody that goes into any level of entertainment, there might be some sort of thing that's being like psychologically bandaged, whether good or bad. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like you don't do that stuff if you're like a massive introvert. But what's ironic is now, as I got older and as I maybe got a little bit more jaded or whatever, is it's flipped. I love doing that stuff and quote unquote performing, and it's all genuine, but I'm also massively introverted. I'm not out to entertain unless it's like, like here, it's all genuine and everything. But if left to my own devices, I'd probably just sit in my house, lights off, watching TV quietly, not out to be the class clown, because that sounds exhausting now.
Yeah, I've gone through that a lot. Very very extroverted kind of person, but now I'm 39 now, and I'm like, I'd rather just be home and just put Netflix on, and my wife is laying next to me, and we're just goofing off watching some movies or something. That's and like the dream.
Is that and this is getting all Buddha here, but like, is that just aging or is that jadedness? Because like some of my friends, when and if they hear this, it'd be like, God, he's a shell of him former self, not in a depressing way, but this isn't the same guy that threw on a tutu during high school halftime games and just winged it and did a drill team performance making fun of the girls' drill team. Yes. It's like a weird, almost a dual personality thing, like how much we change as we age.
Yeah, definitely. I was the guy who put a bike helmet on, and we were in a golf cart at the place I worked, and I was getting thrown out of the golf cart in front of people, or I was handcuffed in the trunk of a car once, and we rolled up to a Taco Bell in the town that I lived in, and I hopped out of the trunk in handcuffs and ran away.
That's brilliant. I like that. Well, that's what's funny is this is the old man's statement to say, but like, I remember back in high school and junior high, mostly high school in this context, the people that did drugs and drank were the minority, so like everybody just had their acted out or were punks or whatever on like, I don't know if you want to say pure terms. They weren't drug enhanced. They did the crap in the drive-thru like that. When you said helmet, it reminded me and a buddy, we dressed up like Harry and Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber. We got a moped and we drove around our high school campus like that, you know, no alcohol, no drugs, just high on life. And, you know, and it's just, it also could be a small town thing or generational.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, like,
I think some of that is like creativity, and you've got to get it out in a certain form. I'm not an artist. I can't sing. I love music, but I can't do any of that, and I can't draw or anything. And so I have a creativity that I have to express out. Maybe that's why I do a podcast now.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. I think that's something, and the older I get, the more, because I definitely went into careers that obviously they weren't, I say it not self-deprecatingly or offensively, but I was just called the artsy fartsy stuff, which I do all the time. I mean, there's paintings behind me and I do the artsy fartsy acting crap. But yeah, there is something, some people I think are wired to do something. And the older I get, the more I look at it like, you know, you could be super hippie-ish about it and call it a purpose and some sort of grandiose purpose. And if nowadays, especially the way the world is going, like if you don't have purpose, whether that's podcasting or, you know, some people do podcasts at 3 people here. Who cares? If you're getting off on it, and I don't mean that to be belligerent, good. So what, you know, like, and I think especially now that could be the counter to our generation growing up, is it wasn't necessarily, my dad wasn't against art per se. We watched movies. My mom's an amazing artist as far as some stuff she does, but it wasn't exactly like leaned into either, you know? So it was a weird duality. Like my dad didn't go, Jeff, be a man, but somehow I learned how to do construction and electronic and wiring in the house and drywall repair. And so I don't know how I did. I learned it somehow, but it wasn't like his dad that probably hit him with a stitch.
Right.
And you were going to figure this out, son, because otherwise I'll hit you. You know, like it wasn't, you know, things have changed, but at the same time, it's not like my dad's like, hey, let's go express our feelings and draw our thoughts, you know?
Yeah. And there's definitely an evolution of parenting that is going on. I mean, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids.
Okay.
Teenage kids.
Oh God, I'm tired for you now.
Yeah. Let me tell you, they're the greatest kids in the world. I mean, it's 18, 16, and 14, and they love each other, and we just are the goofiest people that we can be. But I think my generation of parents is more of that express yourself the way that you want.
Yeah.
I may not agree with everything that you say or do.
Yeah.
But as long as you express yourself and you can express to me why it's important to you.
Yeah.
We are going to be perfectly fine. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Agreed. I think that's, this is deep parenting talk, but I think that's definitely like you said, like some generations or styles would stifle. And I think to my parents' credits, they were just on the cusp of a little of both. Dad didn't say, don't do that, son, but for some reason, there was an air of practicality. Go to college, do something that gets you a job and a career. Even when I went military, that was still quote unquote practical, you know, but mom was kind of his little yin and yang. She was very artistic. She did stuff with my sister and I. We took art classes, you know, like she was, again, stay-at-home mom. I was very lucky. So in the summers, they nurtured stuff that just, whether you could call it creative. And so I'm very lucky for me, like as far as my parents. But I definitely see some parents that are just like, no boy, mine will be Peyton. You know, he's not going to talk about his feelings on the internet, you know?
So then I kind of go off script here a little bit.
Yeah.
I already have a script, but so I'm just thinking about this right now. Is that why a lot of times when you'll see actors who kind of fall off and they'll go down a rabbit hole of drugs, alcohol, and have to go into rehab and stuff? Is it because that sort of creativity has been stifled? They can't bring it out, and so they have to have something else that, or is that something else that just makes them not, it makes them feel like they don't live anymore because they're trying to escape?
I have a handful of theories that aren't fully formulated, but I would leaning slightly into as far as like the practical stuff, I'll say like being an architect, a doctor, a firefighter, Green Beret, whatever. Those exactly don't tap into like an emotional release per se. There, you could argue a little bit, yes, but then the other stuff, acting, performing, musicians, whatever, I think you inherently have to be tapping into something. And my loose theory is that and this is also, I saw this a lot with younger kids, not like I'm a god thespian, but I've educated and trained enough I could look back and see things retroactively as far as like the old guy versus the new kids. A lot of people, for some reason, I had a professor in LA, actually, to his credit, he would yell at younger students when he's like, acting is not for effing therapy. If you're using this to be therapy, or you're performing this character and it's damaging you after your performance and you're all getting artsy fartsy and like literally being affected after we call cut, you need therapy. He goes, you don't need acting. And I think that it's the chicken and the egg, which came first, but I think it definitely is a draw for those issues. And then because of the up and down of the business, you don't get your fix, like we were saying earlier. Like, that's a big thing for me. I freaking love this, but I have so little control over it. And so I can see, that's a brilliant question you asked, is I can see, and you even said I have an addictive personality, like you said earlier before recording. If you love what you do, like the Green Beret thing, even if we were on a red cycle back home, you know, with our pillow time crap, we were still, the amount of rounds we put down range on a Tuesday was just ungodly satisfying.
Yeah.
So we still got our fix. And so I think all those things, those bad bullet points, as far as like if people are going into it to express themselves emotionally and they have a lot of conflict, or you could even argue people that have a lot of emotional baggage might be drawn to the arts because that is their way to express. That's a lot of stuff, just a recipe for a disaster. And then if you make it big, pressure, stress, I mean, I think it is a perfect storm. If you don't go in there with some sort of clear-headedness or awareness or therapy already lined up, you know, I definitely can be a downward spiral. I mean, you could take away, like, I even argue, like, if you look at professional athletes, or even like I look at empathetically soft guys like Green Berets and, you know, special forces guys, this was their identity. And if they retire or get injured, their purpose is like gone into like almost overnight. So I'm not saying it justifies alcohol abuse or drugs or whatever, but I also can see why. Like, I mean, that's why they say alcohol numbs the pain, you know? So I see, if you translate that into like the arts, which is you literally are an emotional creature in those businesses, but they're also businesses that have no say. It is a recipe for disaster. And I think, it definitely is a giant reason, to answer your question, why that is a thing, you know, not right or wrong or good, bad or indifferent, but it makes more sense. You know, it's not a surprise, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's, God help everybody that goes in that business. That's my takeaway.
Yeah. It's not an easy business. I would say going special forces, not an easy business.
Yeah.
You did that. Was that something that you knew you wanted to do, special forces?
Yes.
We're not going to be content doing conventional.
Yeah. I knew, for those who know it, they're called SF babies, special forces babies, where it's essentially, SEALs have this too. So for some reason it's kind of hated on in the Army, part of the DOD. But yeah, I knew it was straightforward, though. I had a special forces contract, which doesn't mean you're guaranteed squat, but it goes, you're going straight to try this. And I did it based on my best friend's advice, he was an infantryman, and he had an amazing enlisted career, transitioned as an officer. So he was kind of my mentor as far as like what to do, what not to do. And I always knew, just as a kid, being inspired and interested in the military, it probably is Rambo's fault. Like, it literally is probably Sylvester Stallone's fault that I wanted to do special forces. G.I. Joe was a Green Beret. Like, I couldn't, and I don't mean any disrespect to the radiology technician in the Army or the grunt or the cook, and none of that, no disrespect, but I couldn't fathom anything other than that. And so at my age, with my injuries, with my life abuse, my best friend, he goes, go that route. You're going to be deficient because you don't have a lot of Army career as a grunt, but he goes, you're going to be able to compensate with life experience and mental maturity, etc. So yeah, I went straight that route. And, it's so cliche, but failure wasn't an option, because when you take an SF contract, if you wash out, you quit, they kick you out. The famous phrase is needs of the military.
Yep.
You go into that Green Beret contract and don't make it, good luck. You know, odds are you'll go into an infantry unit, especially at Bragg, it'd probably be the 82nd Airborne.
Right.
And I didn't mean any disrespect to my 82nd Infantry brothers, but in my head, the way I'll drop an F-bomb here, I was like, the fucked up way I looked at it was, if I don't succeed at this, I will be an 82nd Airborne in a week, deployed a week later, doing IED patrol and dying. And sure as shit, a guy washed out from our Delta course, thrown over to the 82nd Airborne, killed by an IED like 2 weeks later. And I was like, I thought I was making that up, and so that experience specifically, I was like, I cannot fail this. There's no way. So
yeah, that's incredible. But you got through it.
Yeah.
What were you like? You were 30 or something all the way through?
Mid to late. When did I get done? I should know my math better. I was late 20s in basic training. I turned 30 in Green Beret 18 Delta school stuff. So yeah, I came out not by any means an old guy, but I definitely was the oldest, lowest ranking guy during the first part of my career, which super sucked because my peers by age were, my age brothers, my friends that are 30, 35s, etc. But by rank still makes you not hang out with them. So that just reinforced the loner aspect. I was like, I had no identity. I definitely wasn't going to hang out with the equals in rank because they're little punk a-holes.
Yeah.
So it was, I'm glad I did it the way I did it, but I always tell people, I'm like, I was deficient as far as the experience of joining it as an infantryman at 18. But at the same time, I wouldn't say join the military right now either. So that's a whole nother 3-hour podcast, I'm sure.
So then you get out. You said some medical things happened.
Yeah.
It was either
it was gravity in a helicopter, and I walked away from it a year later with a spine full of metal and a year of rehab and physical therapy and all that. So
did that happen in CONUS? Or?
Yeah, no, it was in country. It was on an operation. So that works out as far as if you're good with your number, your money, and your finances, and keeping records. So it's great to. I can't remember the words they use. If you get injured during in an instrument of war or something like that, that helps with your retirement. There's absolutely gravity and a Black Hawk and Earth and me. So that that again, there's Green Berets I know that are actually literally serving missing a leg, and I just chose not to. I was like, I wish I would have joined her. That's a giant regret. Is I wish I would have joined during a little bit more of the cowboy days, not willy nilly killing people like stupid, not that kind of cowboy crap, but little where I thought more was happening, more was being done than just being the way it is now. Just
being a counter-terrorist.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I get that. I get that, definitely. But it sounds like even after, you got out, medical reasons.
Yeah.
But you still didn't feel like you were finished that sort of career path. You went to be not even just a firefighter, you were like an elite firefighter.
Yeah, I think I drifted towards the trucks. And I don't want to blow it to before, so I was there for 2 years, and I definitely drifted towards, because I was the oldest guy in the academy. I am pretty sure I was the oldest guy in the academy. But again, I definitely drifted towards, I was always as fast as possible going, I know the new guy games, I know the rules, I know you can't do this as a first year firefighter. But to the firefight department's credit, they were like, this guy's almost in his 40s. He was an 18 Delta. He was in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So actually one of my cadre in the academy, he was an 18 Delta. So they knew kind of on paper where I was, what I was capable of, what my interest would be. So I was always trying to get on the rescue teams, the high angle rescues, the motorcycle team. And you can only do so much so fast as early in your career as a firefighter without coming across like you expect favoritism. Because that's the kind of crap I hate is, because I did this in the military, I automatically should be given this. Hell yes, it should be a factor. I would kill if I could just go straight to SWAT or something. Right. Cool. But I couldn't pound the ground in LA for 10 years. Don't get me wrong, if they came up with a straight to SWAT program, I'd be very interested. But it doesn't exist. Just because I was a Green Beret doesn't mean I have to skip the ground pounding for 10 years. So I tried to definitely get to as many of those quote unquote elite, those more, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, the less grunty stuff. I love grunt work. I don't like being in charge and being an officer and all that. But I wanted to be in the rescue stuff. I didn't like firefighting. I liked going in with an axe and a Halligan and looking for bodies. I liked that stuff. So I still had that need. But unfortunately, that's also, they'll say this in the first days of the academy. They're like, if you're here to be a firefighter, quit, because you're going to be an EMT for 90% of your career.
Yeah.
Like, go and listen, and sure as shit, that's how it is. You're an EMT that might fight a fire every once in a while.
So can I ask about that?
Yeah.
Because personally, I have seen that out here, and dealing with kind of things, and you call up. Let's say you call 911 emergency. Hey, I have a medical emergency.
Yeah.
And it's the firefighters that show up. What goes into that thinking?
Yeah, every municipality is a little different, but the general template, even like if it's FDNY, LA Fire Department, Colorado Springs Fire, 911 will go out to, I'm pretty sure I'm accurate in saying this, fire will get the call, and if there happens to be a civilian, a non-fire ambulance service, sometimes the ambulance service is the fire department. Like I believe FDNY, every ambulance is a fire ambulance, unless it's like a transport of an old person to another person. That'll be like one of those like just critical care transport ambulances.
Right.
As like an 18-year-old EMT or something riding it. Colorado Springs I liked it for me because they actually had an ambulance business. There was another business that ran ambulances. So they actually got the 911 call. So sometimes if you knew it was a bullshit call, you might drive a little slower knowing they'll get there first, because not every house in Colorado Springs or every fire station had an ambulance. So
right.
Like you said, the engine would show up with firefighters. It's not like they could transport a body in it. So yes, they're all EMTs. Most of the time they have a paramedic, so they can provide stuff. But the actual ambulance that would support, maybe do stuff en route to the hospital, that would always be coming second.
Right.
But that's rare. I think Colorado Springs is pretty rare. Most fire departments are 911, and they are the ambulance. They are the transport service. So in those departments, you are very much going to be an EMT way more than even I was. And
that's part of the academy. They teach you.
They don't teach you, but they tell you, yeah, you come out as an EMT basic. Like you have to be, some departments actually require you to be a paramedic. And people, old dudes that want to just be a firefighter, they're like, I didn't sign up to be a paramedic. And some of them, they're not wired to sit there and learn drip rates for medications. And so they're like, this is horrible, but that's just a fact. I mean, when was the last time we saw a fire that was not just like a garbage dump, maybe a truck on fire on the highway? I mean, this isn't like the movies where like half of Chicago is on fire on a Friday.
Right.
So that's just, there is a medical section in the academy where you come out with your EMT basic because you have to. But they do tell you, just like as, one of their more like opposite of motivational speeches, they're like, they go straight up, do not be here if you want to be a firefighter. Those days are gone. And they're not wrong. And I just didn't listen. But that, as an 18 Delta, being that SF medic guy, having the life I lived, it wasn't, not to be a dick, but it wasn't fulfilling enough. I needed the constant rescue missions. I needed constant, or it wasn't enough. I love humans, but I was burnt out on medicine.
Yeah.
I could put on the face and go, hey, let's do some vitals, Grandma. I love this job, but it just wasn't satisfying. And I'm one of the few people that quits firefighting. Nobody quits firefighting because it's an amazing job. Shifts are amazing, the team's amazing, but I needed to be ironically, I needed movie fires every Friday.
You had a passion for something else. And
yeah.
That's where we'll get to the meat of this, because you went from there and you decided to go to Hollywood.
Yeah, because it was burning out and it wasn't getting me what I wanted. And it wasn't like I was 15 years into it. I was 2 years into it. And I was kind of like going, I don't want to pick up, no disrespect to the homeless guy at the 7-Eleven, but I don't want a 911 to him every Thursday knowing it's Billy Bob. Yeah. And it wasn't enough for me. And so enough things happened. I asked for a divorce from my at the time wife, which was for the best. So no boohoo's there. But it straight up turned into a country song. It was me and a dog in a car. And I was just like,
wow.
And to credit us, some good friends of mine, they just were like, Jeff, this is your time. You damaged your body. You have, your medical payments for your retirement. So you have nothing to worry about. Go for it. And the micromanaging OCD, tightly wound guy was like freaking out about doing something so stupid. But I was like, in the same spirit of why I was a Green Beret later, why I was a firefighter later, the whole, fuck it, I'll regret this the rest of my life. That superseded my need to be in control, and so, yeah, I put my house on Craigslist and I didn't even sell anything. I just said, come in the house and buy stuff off the shelves. It was the most like unsafe scenario ever. Like I was packing heat, but I just let people come in my house and just buy dishes out of the cabinets and just.
What year is this?
2004? That can't be right. Maybe 2004. No, God, it's 2023 now.
Yeah.
That's way long ago. I haven't had enough head injuries to explain that, but I am bad at numbers and math and memories. 8-ish years ago. 8, 9.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. And that's the whole regret sucks. I had to do it or I'd be pissed for not trying. Yeah. I can't believe I did it. To this day, I'm like, that stresses me out. Like retelling that, I'm like, oh my God. Like I felt like I got like career roofied to just, take it and good luck. And now to this day, I'm like, it makes me sweat just thinking about what I did.
And here you are.
All right. I mean, again, I'm not rocking on a ranch of, 30 horses on a billboard with Chris Pratt or anything like that. But
yeah,
in the spirit of what we talked about earlier, older, wiser, more perspective and all that, I can't really have too many complaints. I mean, I complain, but yeah, it didn't go bad considering the business I went to. I think as what we talked about and we'll probably touch on is the things I had control over, have control over, that are like maybe 2% of the 100% equation. I've crushed those 2%. All the crap that's out of my control that does drive me nuts, that I do bitch and moan about, and I do lose sleep on, and I stress about constantly. If I can put that aside, just focus on the stuff I did, I know I haven't screwed up or been lazy or been crappy at my attempt. So
did you understand that before you got into Stoicism, or was Stoicism kind of what triggered it?
Helped.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that going in. I think there was a Stoic wiring in my head, but it is it requires a lot of conscious effort on my part. I'm not a walking ball of Stoic peace. I really have to work at the things that aren't in your control, let them go stuff. I'm really bad at that. To this day, it's a sleep killer for me. So I drew to Stoicism because I knew it was an unsustainable mentality as far as like, the pillars of Stoicism, all the stuff Stoicism is about. I was like, this works for me because it's not a spiritual, it's not religious, and I am a religious guy, but it was very pragmatic. And so I was like, this level of absurdity for somebody that needs so much freaking control, I need an intermediary to manage this.
Yeah.
And so Stoicism drifted into my periphery to help manage or mitigate the insanity of this horrendous career decision.
Do you see a lot of Stoic practitioners in Hollywood?
I would say, and I've actually had this conversation with Betty the other day, kind of what you're talking about, the business draws a certain type, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I would say the business typically draws people that are more artsy fartsy. And I don't mean this disrespectfully. And oftentimes, and I'm in awe of this mentality, I've seen more people that are like, I'll just manifest it. I'll ask the universe for it, all that crap. And I don't mean it disrespectfully. I roll my eyes at it. I'm just baffled by that mentality. I didn't ask the universe for my Green Beret. I went through, fire, blood, and water to get that thing. And then no matter how much I asked Oprah or The Secret for it, it wasn't going to happen unless I crushed and kicked ass to get it. So I saw more of, if you will, that mentality. And that's really generically speaking, but more the people I ran into and a lot of my closest friends that are still in Los Angeles are more loose with their like structure, and it works for them, which is why like it doesn't work per se for me, coming in from literally the word militant background to something that's so out of your control. So for someone like me, probably you, a lot of people we associate with, it is a soul suck of stress because we're not wired that way to go, it's okay, whatever's meant to be will be. I know that's right intellectually, and I know that's probably a good way to think, but I just can't embrace it. Like my brain I need to unwire something. And so that's why Stoicism worked to apply. That was my version of their secret, ask Oprah, manifest it to the universe. Like now, right. That seems solid to me. So I didn't see as many of me, to answer your questions finally, as I did more of the just whatever's meant to be will be, because it draws that kind of person, and those people are typically more artistic. They're more, easy going and go with the flow, and which is why probably some of them have maybe better or more easygoing careers. Like for me, I still treat it like getting a Green Beret. Like if I F this up, I will die in the 82nd Airborne.
Yeah.
I still have that mentality in Hollywood, but it's the exact opposite of being in my control. So it's obviously that doesn't work. It's very conflicted for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been there. I haven't, done anything in Hollywood, but I can kind of get that sense and just what I see. So let's go back to divorced. You got your country song going with your dog and your truck, and hopefully those didn't leave you. But you arrive into Hollywood. What's that like? What's the first gig, the first read that you did?
Well, like the country song, she got the dogs. So it was just, I should write a country song now. It feels scripted, but the assistant surgeon on my spine surgery knew, I think it was because of Facebook, said, hey, you could sleep on my couch. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to swing for the cliches, let's just swing for the cliches. So I packed up my vehicle and slept on a couch there for a while, and I winged it. Like I knew I had a plan, but I kind of went there, the whole, I can't remember where it came from, but it's been bastardized constantly. The whole burn your boats metaphor of, I think it was Magellan, or I don't know who it was, or the Vikings or something. But basically, yeah, when they got to the place they were attacking, the theory was they burned the boats, so there's no escape. They had to win or die trying. So that's kind of how I treated Hollywood, was like, there's no choice. I didn't go there having a plan to be a bartender or a bouncer or a personal trainer. I went there with enough savings and a little bit of the retirement stuff that I had rolling, which doesn't work very well. LA is so expensive. But that was my only option. So I actually didn't, which is still retelling you, this makes me just sick. I didn't have a plan other than shelter. Like that was plan number one. And I think, and I've said this constantly, but I think because of, I called the spectrum of suck, my spectrum of suck, what I'd done in special forces and all that, was way different than 18-year-old Jeff and what he considered difficult. So finding shelter in Los Angeles, boo-hoo, cry me a freaking river. So like I was willing to go through a lot of hell, which was subjectively easy compared to some other stuff I had done. So that was really it. That was my first, was just to get shelter. And then after that, through enough veterans that had been in the city, I knew one Green Beret who's been a stuntman in the industry forever. I just got through the right connections, and nothing was awesome overnight. It's not a cool overnight success story, just little crap, some little indie films here and there, and just enough baby crap just to pay the bills, even if it was like a commercial nobody saw, an indie film nobody saw, but just little $50, $100 jobs that just barely got through. And to a lot of people, like I have a debt list that I've created that just of people that did me favors. And I did the couch sleeping thing for a giant chunk of my time in California. And this is a little huggy here, but like, I'm very fortunate that I had friends that did that basically it was at their expense. Like I didn't freeload and like I paid my share utilities, but they didn't have to do that crap for me. So that was it. And then there was no big turning point. It was just because of my relentless, if I go to the 82nd Airborne, I'm going to die by an IED mentality, that just sheer saturation paid the bills. Like I have a tracker, surprises my OCD. And what I had in a year for auditions, I had in like a week, because I was like, there will be no other existence for this other than I'd go to the gym and be available for auditions. And it got to the point where I would send this to a manager or whatever, and like, how many auditions have you had this year? And at one point it was something like 500 in a year. That's great, but it's also like soul sucking. Like I did the whole life's a sprint, not a marathon. I ran a sprint. And so it was just saturation. I shot shotgun pellets at the wall, and it just kept hitting enough to survive. Yeah. There's no big giant, I got a movie with Uma Thurman that was really cool, but it paid some bills, and I got a little bit of heat, and I got a manager out of it. But it wasn't like all of a sudden life's easy now. I'm going to go buy my ranch and my Ferrari. Everything was survival the whole time I was in LA. It was just how it was.
So 500, what, in a year, let's say, 500. So that's a lot of no's. You're hearing a lot of no's.
Yeah.
How do you mentally prepare for that? Did going through being a Green Beret, did that help you at all?
This is probably the shortest answer you'll give for me. Initially I was pissed because I hate not having control over my fate. But then it got to the point where I realized I was doing quite well with what I could control, whether they needed fit looking dudes, I was always in shape, or whatever. I knew I was always studying or training or whatever, but the things that were out of my control, which maybe they thought I was a shitty actor that day, or maybe I was a shitty actor that day, or maybe I reminded them of an ex-boyfriend, or maybe they just thought I was an abrasive militant a-hole from Idaho, whatever. But the other 98% of stuff I had no control over was kind of almost for once peaceful to me. I was like, oh, I literally can't do anything about these things. So that actually made the no's okay, because I knew statistically there was so much already against me getting the yes, and not in an excuse way, because I would hate that. I'd punch myself in the face if I was looking for excuses. But I just knew statistically the sheer amount of people that came in, the sheer amount of them that were clones of me, that there's so much out of my control that I can only, the three things I can do, I did them to 100. I did them to an 11. And the other thing, it's kind of like if you get all your arms blown off and limbs, you're not going to be playing NBA basketball.
Right.
So no choice. And that's almost freeing. If you think you have a say in your fate, that's almost more stressful than saying you have no choice. There's no say in this. So I got to the awareness of saying I have no say in this. And that was freeing, but it still sucks to be told no 480 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
People try to go, and I know they mean well, but like my mom, even they'll say stuff like, that's like it is in the real world. I'm like, no, I had to get a job at a tire store in high school. I applied and got it. I didn't have to perform. I didn't have to have blue eyes or perfect hair, or there weren't 400 people also applying to Les Schwab tires in high school.
Right.
I made these checkpoints as a Green Beret. I became one. It wasn't easy, don't get me wrong, but that was almost quote unquote easier than getting a damn job in Hollywood.
And that's because that's such a tough, that first time, anytime you're told no or something like that, I would call it failure, right?
Yeah.
So the first time you fail, it's just could be the most difficult time of your life. I know for me personally, when that happened, it was just like, oh no, I'm a failure now.
100%,
So I've had to recalibrate my brain that sometimes you fail not because you can't do it, but because something else is opening up, or you learn something from that failure that opens that other thing up.
And that's the wise, good on you approach.
Yeah.
I know that intellectually agreed, yes. And to me, that's the line of delineation between the stuff if I didn't become a Green Beret, I probably wouldn't have been in the headspace to be as wise as you with that statement. I'd have been like, I'm a failure. Or if I didn't pull off the firefighting. And I wasn't like the star college high school quarterback. I mean, the things I've always done, I've succeeded at, and they weren't, I'm not blowing out of proportion. Like I said, I wasn't like an all-star athlete. But the big things I reached out for, the Green Beret and the firefighter, particularly the Green Beret thing, I succeeded at. So failure, I didn't get, but at the same time, luckily for me, the Hollywood thing, I did ever translate to failure, but I still have the emotional reaction to it. Like the thing that I say is unwise. So that's why I commend you for that headspace, because I need to find that headspace in this chaotic, out of my control world of this, especially this industry, because for perspective, I know you brought it up in the email at some point, but I had a giant audition that I just did last week that it's the main bad guy for an entire season of a #1 show on a network.
Wow.
Can't say more than that. And I know I crushed it. I did what I could with it. And if I don't get it, no, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm a failure. But I absolutely feel like I lost the Super Bowl when I don't get those balance, because I don't have the wisdom headspace and that's the deficiency I have. So I don't have that one wired tight yet. I don't have that stoic at all.
Well, let's talk about some successes, because I was looking through your reels and I saw you were on a brief character on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love the show.
I do too.
I think everyone there is hilarious. So how long were you on set for that? How was that? Did you get to interact with the guys there?
That's the thing. That was the first job I learned the disproportionality of time on screen and time spent working. I was almost there for a week, and if the episode I was on, I mean, I'll round up to maybe a total of 120 seconds. The scenes were funny as crap. I got to interact with Sandberg, and I forgot the name, the guy who plays his chief. And so it's a weird disproportionality. You're on the clock for 8 hours, even if you're sitting in anybody that complains about Hollywood acting, when I see celebrities and all that, especially ones who are driven and given their food and massively well taken care of, I'm like, whoa, you have the cushiest job on the planet. Yes, it might be stressful and exhausting, but damn, I just got paid basically because it was, union work, a decent like rate. And it's not like a secret. It's on the internet, but like back in those days, it was like $800 for 8 hours. Like that's pretty damn good.
It's good
to be playing pretend. And actually, because if you're acting, the amount of time you're acting for, like, let's say you're there for like an 8-hour day, you're doing your lines and you're doing the crap like the scene I did with Sandberg is maybe a total of, I'll even round up to maybe an hour. The rest of the other 7 hours is them setting up, running the rehearsing it, setting the lights, so like the disproportionality of work put into paycheck received is so crazy. So it was fun as hell, but because ironically the military, you get used to waiting a lot. So it's ironic.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, that career actually is helping me do that. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to sleep over here on the concrete. And I'm like, is that guy okay? I can sleep anywhere. So like that was awesome because that was the first big paycheck. It was the first big role. And I say big. It was, I think, yeah, I had a name. So the first big role, first name with a main star. And so it was kind of fun. But then I also, to me, further reinforced the absurdity of the stuff I don't have control over. Even though I got the role, they were auditioning for cliche short Italian Guidos. Like that's what the audition called for. And I'm not an Italian Guido. They put me in a tracksuit and slicked my hair and gave me a chain.
Right.
And I was like, and I wasn't going to talk myself out of the job. I was like, I would not have picked me for so that just proved to me further how there's so much crap out of my control. Like maybe they saw me and they're like, oh, we don't need a Guido. So I'm like, well, if that's the case, the inverse of that is also the case. They might like me, but they're like, oh, he's too big for that role because I am like 6.5 feet tall. So that job gave me perspective, good and bad, as far as like work put in, work received, the absurdity of like what they're asking for versus what they cast. And then the happy feely part of that, like it was fun as hell. Like that dude is funny as hell. Like Sandberg he's extremely smart, but he plays the biggest idiot.
Right.
I would see like the thing I'll never forget was like between takes, or if we're polishing something up, he wasn't an a-hole. He was very talkative, and we were just kind of bullshitting between the takes. And his like, you could tell that sounds like such an a-hole when you're looking at somebody who's genuinely, all pistons aren't firing, they're just not bright. There's literally a dimness in their eyes. And Sandberg, when he was talking in between scenes, he was sharp, his eyes were engaged, and you could just tell he was a smart guy. And to be that level of funny was there. But right when they called action, he got these weird cow glazed eyes. Like he just looked like an idiot all of a sudden. And I was like, don't screw this up, Bosley. Because I wanted to laugh so hard because I watched them go action, and he just went to like this cow mode of just dumb ass moron. And I just like, don't laugh. You're playing a serious character. And so I was really, like, that was the first time I realized what it would be like to work on like a Will Ferrell movie, or those movies where it's just funny as hell. Like we'd cut and I just would turn my back. I'm like, cool, man. Don't be the giant train that's laughing. But that was fun as hell. That was the first time where I realized, like, oh man, as much as I like on paper, if I make a tough face or I'm showing off muscles and tattoos, I'm always going to play that guy. But when I watch shows like Parks and Rec or New Girl or The Office, those just look like the best freaking kick in the ass fun that anybody could have. Like those would probably just be a dream come true.
Yeah. I mean, Andy Samberg, I love that guy as an actor. Hot Rod's one of my favorite like movies just to turn on and watch. And
yes, very good. And that's the thing is like, you can't be that funny. And I mean, it exists. There are funny people that are idiots, but to be like intelligent funny, but to also play such moronic funny.
Yeah.
To me, that's like a savant level of genius.
Definitely. Yeah. I agree with that. You were also in an episode of SEAL Team. Is that sort of like the role you thought for yourself? You were going to do these military type roles.
Those are the I don't want to say easy ones, because it's still the same absurd process to get even in the door. Like without going down a long rabbit hole, like people will say, "Oh, you should be on this, Jeff. You should be on Yellowstone." And the amount of checkpoints to even get considered by your agent or your manager to even get the audition, let alone them approve the audition. It's not just like, and it's an awesome compliment. People are like, "Oh, Jeff, you should be on SEAL Team." I'm like, there's not a 800 line to go, "Hey, somebody told me I should be on your show." It is it is frustrating. It was more easy to try out for like high school or college basketball because you're like, oh, I'll sign up and try out. It's not how it works. That one was through the business is all networking, good or bad, which is the icky part of it that I hate. I don't feel like feeling like a used car salesman, but through enough of the channeling and networking I had done, especially in the stunt community or the military advisory community, got enough of a footprint that some people said, hey, this guy should audition for this role. And it wasn't like a Jeff should be the new Indiana Jones. It was nothing like that, but it was a, hey, this guy needs this and he's a shoo-in, I vouch for him or whatever. So I still had to audition all that. And it was ironically supposed to be a main secondary character to the main cast. Like it was supposed to have like a character arc, if you will, for the season. And I was like, dreams come true. I was like, I can finally buy a house. You know, I was doing what Joe did when they're 18 out of their first deployment, man. I'd already spent my re-enlistment paycheck, basically.
You got a Dodge Charger?
Exactly. I had a Dodge Charger, a Mustang, and a 32% finance. But yeah, so it was supposed to be that. And that's the weird thing about this business. If you like it, I don't want to be dead and jaded because I know I can tend to be that way. But as a result, it's constantly this up and down happy. You know, if you go to an 11 up here, you got to crash. There's no way to go down to a 0 without it feeling like a dump. So I was like kind of getting giddy and emotional and excited about it, but then it killed me off. And I was like, you know, but I got 2 episodes out of it, and it was a lot of filming. I got to spend a lot of time, and those are shoe-in jobs for like, as far as the technical aspect. I will give SEAL team credit, even though there's a joke, you know, SEALs and Green Berets are always button heads. And
oh, yeah.
SEALs are very much in Hollywood. And I'm even fighting for a SEAL role that's coming out. So whatever. But it was definitely, to their credit, I'll always say this, and I'll fight online with every movie nerd on the planet. Hire the best actor and all the other bullshit. If they used to be a real doctor, if they used to be a real Green Beret, if they used to be whatever, bonus. But this weird, because this happened with Brendan Fraser for like The Whale. He had a fat suit on.
Yeah.
People are like, hire a real fat person. I'm like, I don't not agree with that, but that shouldn't be the requisite. He was the best actor. And then there's politics. A name actor versus a no-name actor. Of course, you're going to want a name actor because it's a business. So don't hire me because I was a Green Beret. Hire me hopefully because I'm a good actor. But if the Green Beret stuff helps, bonus, that does set me apart. But to me, I'll always say that. And so it was good on that. That show is really good at hiring former vets because it adds, the phrase is a little douchey, production value. They don't have to have a consultant run and teach the guy how to, like, I actually helped David Boreanaz's choreograph a scene where we had to clear like a battleship. It was a really narrow inside of a battleship. So the CQB, I was like, he's a little taller. So like, okay, Jeff, you showed David how to do this. And so we actually blocked it for him and he just mirrored it. So to his credit, he learned really well. But then when I did my scene, there's another guy, we were shooters up on a bridge of a ship, and he was another 18 Delta too. And so they're just like, all right, just roll it. You guys do what you would do. So it's just really efficient to do that because, we did mag changes. We knew how to play off each other for the shooting our guns. And so those were phone-in jobs. Don't get me wrong. But we're playing, what do they call it? A rib, the boat, the boat SEALs always use. I can't remember what it's for. We had to come in on that, and I'm shooting a 50. And again, don't get me wrong. If I didn't scream like a little girl inside during that, like we're going over waves, I'm shooting a 50 at a battleship. If that was the real world, I would have been having a blast. Don't get me wrong. Nobody's shooting at me for real, fortunately.
Right.
But I was having to do a kick in the ass. Like, you're playing pretend, you're getting paid really good money for it. So it's fun as hell. So those jobs are phone-in jobs. So I'm like, oh, I'll just pretend to be me, act tough and stoic and and just act tough and shoot guns and collect my paycheck and I just had a blast with those dudes on set, but then they killed me off. So,
and you've also done some directing of some short films.
That's the thing. Everybody says this is one I fight on a lot with some people. They're like, well, if you want to do it, make your own content. I'm like, yeah, but it's also a business.
That costs money, first of all.
Yeah, I want to play basketball, but playing in my driveway isn't the same as playing for the NBA. I don't knock that, but that's my standard. And I don't mean that in a dick way. But I do, like you said, if you enjoy the art or the thing you enjoy doing, that's the thing you got to decide is like, are you willing to do it at a cost, literally or metaphorically? And so I have a really good friend. He was the guy that helped me tons when I moved to LA. His name is Scott. we do tons of stuff together. He's more creative. I kind of hand him ideas and he polishes the turds because I have great ideas, but I don't have maybe the wiring and definitely the formal education to write scripts. He went to, like you said, he went to New York Film Academy or whatever.
Okay.
NIFA.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot. So he actually has formal education as far as like picking lenses and all this stuff. So, we just shot one, when I lived in Atlanta. I bought a house in Atlanta. And that sounds pompous, but it was just because it's a small town and outside of Atlanta, it was affordable. My mortgage for a 5-bedroom house was what I was paying for rent for a studio in LA. So I wasn't balling and bought an awesome house. I just bought a house and moved. So we flew the cast out there because it's cheaper to do that there than it was to shoot it in LA. And I enjoy that because, like, if I could just not think about money and bills and the bullshit we have to deal with on a daily basis, obviously that'd be with anything. Like, if you could Joe Rogan your podcast and just have a hell of a day and do 5 Yeti commercials at the beginning of it.
Yeah, that would be the dream.
Yeah. And and so like, those are the moments I try to use as my personal litmus test of like, wow, that whole day I was stressed directing or talking to Scott, or I was stressed on my lines, but not once was I thinking about my cell phone bill or my mortgage payment. You know, obviously the reality kicks you back in the face when you know, on a Saturday morning, but that stuff was awesome. Cause I do like, for some reason I've been told this, like in theater in college. And when we were doing this movie, it's called Noon. Scott and I were co-directors because he also acted in it. So when he was acting, I was directing, and it's fun as hell because it's cool to like, probably with you and your careers too, like your non-podcast stuff, is if you like teaching, like if you like doing what you were being taught that you're teaching others to do, teaching it can actually be fun as hell. And that's essentially all directing is. In big movies, directing is basically sitting there at the monitor going, okay, action. And then all these other people do shit and you say cut and move on. But with the indie stuff, you kind of, I think if you're a good director, you go, hey, let's talk about your character. Let's try to, why would you do this? Let's be artsy fartsy. And I love that shit. I really do. But I also like the military side of me where I'm like running the show, not because I'm a narcissist, but I like making shit happen.
Yeah.
And the director gets to do that, you know? And so it's just like anything with your business too, is like, you're high off action, you know, inaction is dead and kind of just a soul suck. And so the directing is fun as hell for sure.
Yeah. Idle hands.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as we're down here, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself all day.
Well, you want to talk Oscars for a little bit? So,
hell yeah.
We just had the Oscars. We are an Oscars family. We always have a party.
Okay.
Oh, just for us. No one else is invited, but with the champagne, the kids have their, sparkling
awesome,
grape juice, and we do it all. And this was very important for my kids this year. I think they were huge fans of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
That was a movie they saw in theaters 5 or 6 times.
Really? God,
yeah.
That's really cool to hear. I love that.
And I saw it once when it was streaming because I just didn't get out to it. And I didn't understand what it was all about before watching, but then I watched it and it's incredible how they pieced it all together, and some of the acting in it, as someone who wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I looked and go, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Some of the times where, they were, I don't know if you saw it or not, but
I'm going to rewatch it because I haven't seen it for a long time. And I'm
okay.
It's almost like saying I have seen The Godfather, but at that level, people should have seen that movie out of all of them, and The Whale, and I still haven't seen them.
I have not seen The Whale yet because my wife and I have to be in the right mindset to watch a movie that's going to be that upsetting.
Exactly, and that's why I honestly didn't. Is it you don't go into that or like the first Joker and come out going, I'm going to feel good after that.
Right. So watching that movie and seeing, because characters sort of change their characteristics in an instant.
Yeah.
You see it, just like you were talking about with Andy Samberg, the face just changes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. But speaking on the Oscars, what did you think of the winners? I mean, do you think they got it right this year?
I think they're getting it more right. I know there's this weird, well, first I will say the thing I did value, because the parts from everything, all that movie, I was backwards. Sounds like just a sense of prepositions, but that the thing I liked about it is that and The Whale the vibe I got from them for once, and like I used to be a big Oscars person, but then there's a weird phase, and you'll probably be able to speak better on this because it sounds like you guys have been on it for so long, where there is an ickiness to it, where like, you ever see like on Instagram where they're like, hey, here's the 90s when like Richard Gere and Michael Keaton were on the red carpet, and it had a different, just fun vibe. There might have been some dark shit in the background, I don't know, but there was more of a just like, this is awesome, let's have some fun. And it was just an awards. And then for some reason there was like, just kind of got an icky air to it. So I actually consciously stepped back for a while because of the way I was handling it. You know, I knew myself as an audience to go, you're kind of ruining it. So like, this was the first one, especially because pandemic, did they have them last year? No, the year before. Yeah, last year was the Will Smith thing.
Yes.
The year before that, they'd taken, I think, a year or two off, or it was just disastrous.
It was, so 2020, 2021, I don't remember if they did 2020, but there was one where they separated everybody, and it was the worst television I have ever seen. Everything was trying to be spontaneous, but you could tell it was scripted.
Yeah.
No one wanted to say or do the wrong thing.
And that's the thing. That's what I started getting. And I try not, like, I know this industry, or I firmly feel strongly close to knowing factually that this industry can have some ick to it, and I can't personally vouch for any of it. I've had great experiences, fortunately, but you can't. This is to me like ancient Rome. You get that level of power, fame, money, or whatever. I don't think the human mind, if it's prone to being not the best person, maybe you can go Weinstein levels, or just maybe just an asshole. It becomes easier to be more like socially or literally debaucherous. So I don't know how this industry can't have a lot of grossness to it. I personally, fortunately, have not experienced it. I've seen and met some a-holes and whatnot, but whatever. I think that's going to be the risk, like way back earlier when you talked about, when you get into the artsy fartsy stuff, it's literally a business run off of emotion. So emotions are always high. Even when people say, oh, emotions were high, it's like, well, kind of they always are. You know, I've never had a general or a sergeant first class or anybody while getting shot at under fire lose their mind like Christian Bale did on Terminator Salvation. Like, so to me, that's where I go. I'm like, there are people getting shot at that keep their cool better. Like, take it down a notch. You're not curing cancer. You're doing some cool shit, because I love getting lost in movies. So I try not to be a hypocrite. Like, I love just to get lost in a movie. If I cry, great. Or if I get the chills, great. That's all I care about. So I try to always keep that childish, like, love of it in mind. And like you said, the Oscars kind of got like, people were always watching what they were saying, where you could tell. I felt sometimes there was this weird agenda, or like they swing for the fences and they counter, and then they try to like counter it by like overcorrecting. And like, that's why I go back to that 80s thing and 90s thing, where I just fucking enjoy the celebration and just make movies and enjoy yourself. And I think this year's what kind of got back to that. There's always going to be some internet trolls who are like, oh, how many white people were on stage? It's like, well, I can't argue that that's a sound stance. If I'm a white boy from Idaho, I will never know what it's like to be a misrepresented minority. So I like, especially Everywhere All at Once, whatever it's called. That was awesome. Like, they crushed it. And I forgot his name, Short Round, getting an award.
Yes.
That shit needed to happen. I won't ever.
His speech for the award should be your dream everywhere. That's the American dream. Exactly. And it was really cool because he doesn't have some child star, horrible, like, Entertainment Tonight, cocaine, partying. Like, right. He has a pretty pure thing. So for once, this year's awards to me felt like this sounds so cliche, but I didn't see color, and I didn't feel like I was being forced to see it, literally or metaphorically. I just saw people that they were good at their craft and got recognized for it, and they were what they were. The other awards felt like a little, like I said, it felt like massive overcorrecting. And this is the first one where I just felt like it was fun. You know, I felt the same way.
Brendan Fraser, you can tell that guy has been through some shit. I'm guessing from his interviews, like, he was a good dude like I said, it can be an icky industry. I think there's enough to, where there's smoke, there's fire. We can extrapolate from enough accusations, and there's probably some gross stuff in this business. And he just seemed like a nice guy who's getting a good career. He had to be around some gross shit, and it finally just was too much for him. And then years later, he gets to play this role of a lifetime and come out of the nowhere, basically, because he's been off the grid for a while.
and win an Academy Award.
Yeah, and that was amazing to see. And so like this is the first year where I felt like, even just retelling you that, I got the chills. I felt like kind of like a childish, pure enjoyment and inspiration from from watching them enjoy the thing. Every year, because of the freaking internet, people are going to freeze frame faces people make and all that stuff. But if you did that on any other thing, like, I don't care if it's a corporate awards event or some promotion board in the Army, if you did the same amount of scrutiny the next day on Twitter with freeze framing everybody's eye roll,
you'd find it.
We find it.
Yeah.
And it'd probably be way worse and way more colorful. So it's
definitely
like, just enjoy. This one felt like you could just enjoy it for what it was.
It's exactly what my wife and I said as we were watching. And once it ended, we were just like, well, that was just fun.
Yeah.
We had a blast.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, I forget, I'll butcher his name because I'm a pretty much cliche American, but I'll call him Short Round, unfortunately. Like you said, his speech it's what it should be. Like, that guy was just on cloud nine. He was just so freaking happy. And I think he said, like, didn't he say something like, my mom's watching this? Look, Mom, I won an Oscar. Like, that was awesome. Like, that was so cool.
If anyone asks what the American dream is, and you hear a lot of times it's owning a home or it's doing this or that, go to that speech.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He was an immigrant. He came on a boat.
Yeah.
Got, scrounged around. He got a role. He didn't make it past that.
Yeah.
And now he's got an Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyone can make it in the United States.
And I like this free point. And my slightly jaded side that I'm trying to be better about is I like that the thing that happens in the keyboard warrior world is, for some reason, especially in this Hollywood industry, people equate quote unquote success as being on every billboard like The Rock or whatever. The things we see as successful, Pratt's in every TV show, The Rock and Kevin Hart are in every movie now. Those ones those are actually statistically the outliers. Like, but they just float to the top because it is a business. You put The Rock in your movie, it'll be successful. Love him or hate him, I'm sick of him. But I also am envious. I can't fault the guy. So, but those will float to the top. But for every one of the Rocks, yes, there's 1,000 people like me, maybe 10,000. Then there's maybe 20 or 30, 40,000 or whatever number that have zero credits because they can't get in the door. But I like that. This is really disrespectful, but Short Round, whatever his name is, I like his didn't show, look how successful I feel. Look at me exuding happiness for this success. I'm not on a billboard in every movie like The Rock. I like that like you said, the American dream story, it kind of tampered the barometer, I guess. It lessened what it should be perceived as. Like, and I know me as an actor, especially because I'm really hard on myself, or even newbies coming to the industry, like, they think that's like, it's almost like little girls and seeing Kardashians photoshopped on the internet. It's a false perception of success and reality. And if you're basing your Hollywood success on The Rock, you're screwed.
Yeah, you'll never make it.
Yeah. So I want to pay my bills and be happy. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't mind if I got this job where I play a SEAL and I'm the main character for many, many, many episodes on a book that's based on 7 books. That'd be awesome. Don't get me wrong. That would make a career I could actually buy a rent. Like, that'd be stupid awesome. But that doesn't need to be my barometer either. Like, I always say, I want to just pay the bills. In Short Round, he was happy as shit. He had a tux on talking to his mom, and that's that. I don't know what he's been doing since. I'm sure he had to work some basic jobs. If he was good with his money, I don't know. I'm sure he did a lot of like B-level Comic-Cons, but that was awesome to me. That showed, that gave it a new perspective, that it didn't have to be the freaking Rock, and I don't mean to knock the guy, but I just use him as like the pinnacle of what people assume it has to be.
He's in every blockbuster. He's the guy.
Yeah. And it's again, as a movie nerd, I'm like, and I say this as a movie nerd, not a jealous wannabe actor, but I'm also like, come on, let's get some new stuff. I'm kind of tired. I'm actually tired of this.
I will agree with that. In Hollywood, as a society, we are rehashing a lot of movies. But as we wrap up here, oh no, keep going. Sorry.
No, I could go on forever. I was just going to say the rehash thing. Like, I wish people, I wish they do new ideas, but because Matt Damon has this really cool clip on that, that thing where they eat hot wings.
Hot ones.
These are hot ones. Yeah. He has there's a clip of him that really blew my mind as far as when everything went streaming, the amount of profit people have to make to even become profit is why there's no more risky movies being made, which is why we're on Fast and Furious 10 and why we're on Ghostbusters remake number 7, that they're only going for the quote unquote guarantees. And it blew my mind. And then I was also like, okay, so are we fucked? Like, are we going to be in remake mode until the end of time? And that was really mind blowing when he pointed that out. I was like, oh, he's not wrong. Like, it's just
hopefully the pendulum swings back the other way to originality.
And I'll bastardize this real fast because it's a really cool point that I didn't make. A DJ pointed this out, like when they remake a film like with female characters in the old male versions.
Mm-hmm.
At first I was like, that's awesome. But I was also like, the DJ pointed this out. He goes, if I were these women, I would be quite offended that it's like, oh, we can't come up with a new idea good enough for you. So we're just going to have you piggyback it off of these successful men shows. Like they were going to do the Expendables as women. They did the Ghostbusters as women. And like, how about you just give them an original movie that they crush independently?
Yeah.
But because
there are some out there,
yeah, but they're always so scared to not make successful money based on that Matt Damon thing I was telling you about. So they have to go off of a guaranteed income, which is why you get Black Adam versus they would never make Godfather now. Like that's too risky. Yeah. And they couldn't afford all that. It's just, there's no DVD sales and all that. So sorry, I love this shit. I'm rambling.
Yeah. Well, as we close out, is there anything that you would like to put out there that you are working on that you can talk about?
I have nothing to pimp other than the Noon movie. It's called Noon, that my buddy Scott wrote that we filmed in Atlanta. If you don't have money, it takes even longer, but he's crushing it. I watch it, and not because I'm in it. I cry every time. It is so beautiful. And the goal is to get it seen and then bought and then remade with money, etc. When we pimp that out, it'll just be like word of mouth. The trailer's out, so that's huge. But the only other two things that are, again, everything I pimp doesn't really help my business because it's not like I'm like, go see my movie Shazam 2.
But also go see Shazam 2, right?
I agree. I think it's a movie. But yeah, like I said, I just auditioned for a giant role on a giant. I honestly think it's the number one show on Amazon right now, and it'd be the main bad guy for the entire season, which that'd be a career-changing trajectory. It's very stressful because I have to. This is where I need to be a little bit more hippie-ish when I get it versus if I get it.
Right.
So when I get it, I have to be much, much bigger than the main good guy, and the main good guy is huge. He's taken a lot of Hollywood. He's taken a lot of Hollywood vitamins, and I might be in some trouble if I get it. But that'd be huge. And then, like I said, there's these two authors. This isn't an NDA, but I'll pimp out their book. It's called Tier 1. The series is called Tier 1. There's 7 of them now, and it's a Navy SEAL. If you're Green Beret, don't hold me. They're actually really good because they actually tap into the former operator mentality and like functioning in the world without that. And he goes all secret squirrel. And so it's a really cool, like covert operations thing. And they're turning that into a show. And I'm on that, like flies on shit, just trying to, like the picture they posted of the book. I was like, oh shit, that's me. I was like, oh, it's not. I actually thought it was me. So I'm like all over that because in Hollywood, like I said, it's not like there's an 800 number to call. So
right.
I'm pimping the hell out of that just because that's the only way to get those decision makers to is just saturate it, just shotgun blast to the side of the wall constantly. It's not precision tactics at all.
Well, we're not huge here. We don't have a huge audience, but maybe somebody's listening.
You never know. And like I said, when I do my podcast, I do it just because it's fun as hell. And enough people listen and give a crap,
Well, Jeff, thank you for coming on. It's been an awesome conversation. Like you, I'm very passionate about this stuff too. So we could talk for, 3 or 4 more hours. But
easily. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me get long-winded.
All right. Thanks, man.